Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Fabrizio Romano here as always to keep you posted on the transfer market. Today guys, time to update with the shocking news on Carlo Ancelotti and Brazil. What happened? What's going on? What's next? Let's jump into it together. And so guys, here we are again 2 years later with one more shocking news in the Carlo Ancelotti story. You remember 2 years ago was the president of the Brazilian Federation, Ednaldo, going public and announcing, yes, Carlo Ancelotti will be our coach, we have an agreement with Ancelotti, and then the deal collapsed because Real Madrid decided to extend the contract of Ancelotti, keep Carlo Ancelotti, so Ancelotti was going to become the new coach of Brazil 2 years ago, and the deal collapsed. Now, 2 years later, despite a verbal agreement, despite contracts being prepared, despite the staff being prepared, Carlo Ancelotti and Brazil, the deal is again on the verge of collapsing. Let's wait for formal steps also in this case, because this is a crazy story, but the feeling at this time of the night is that the deal between Ancelotti and Brazil could really collapse. Why? What's going on? First of all, the crucial part of this story is Real Madrid and the president of Real Madrid, Florentino Perez, because what we always say is that there is a verbal agreement between Ancelotti and Brazil, something that we already confirmed several times. I can confirm to you because Carlo Ancelotti was in London in the recent hours to meet also with people from the Brazilian Federation to prepare the contract, the staff, everything to be in charge at the beginning of June. So everything was ready between Brazil and Ancelotti. What's the point? That Carlo Ancelotti is under contract for one more year at Real Madrid, till 2026. And so the expectation was from Brazil to have a green light from Real Madrid, the exit of Carlo Ancelotti to be sorted between the coach and the club, and then for Ancelotti to sign the contract. What happened? That in the last 48 hours, when Brazil have been waiting and waiting and waiting for Ancelotti, his lawyers, his agents, to sign all the contracts, they were still waiting for the green light from Real Madrid. Real Madrid didn't like the timing because they were not informed as fast as the media, because the news was everywhere, in Brazil, in Spain, everywhere about Ancelotti and the agreement, the verbal agreement with Brazil, but also Real Madrid made very clear that they didn't want to pay €1 single as an exit fee for Carlo Ancelotti. Why? Because Real Madrid's position is, you are going to another side, in this case a national team. You are not going to be free. We are not going to fire you. We are going to part ways. And so Real Madrid say, if you are going to Brazil, it's a new job, it's a new contract, it's a new salary, we are not going to pay any exit fee. Meanwhile, Brazil didn't want to wait. Brazil didn't like this timing between Real Madrid and Ancelotti, and at this time of the night, the feeling in the Brazilian Federation is that they will not wait long at all. They have other candidates, including Jorge Jesus. Of course, the first and second option for Brazil has always been Carlo Ancelotti, with an agreement ready, with contracts being prepared, with the staff already being discussed. Ancelotti wanted to bring a former Brazilian player as part of his staff together with the guys who are already with him on a regular basis for the World Cup. So everything was ready. It was just about signing the contract. As you can see from all the front pages in Spain, in Brazil, in the last 24-48 hours, as I've been telling you too, of course, this agreement was verbally done, but waiting to sign, waiting for the exit process from Real Madrid. What does it mean now? That Real Madrid are not blocking Ancelotti because they believe they can continue with Carlo Ancelotti. The feeling remains for Carlo Ancelotti and Brazil to part ways, for Carlo Ancelotti and Real Madrid to part ways at the end of the season, for Real Madrid to go for another coach, for Xabi Alonso to be the clear favorite. But Real Madrid and Ancelotti still needed to fix the terms of his exit. What does it mean? The contract, we have one more year. What do we do with this contract? What do we do with the salary? What do we do with the exit fee? The timing, Florentino Perez didn't like all these media stories while Ancelotti still had to speak to Real Madrid about his exit. And then also the formal steps means the farewell, how Real Madrid wanted to say goodbye to Carlo Ancelotti in a very nice way. Then the situation got really, really tense in the recent hours. Now, while I'm talking to you, the Brazilian Federation is described as furious, really, really furious, because they put their face for weeks The people from the Brazilian Federation has been in Spain, in Madrid, in Sevilla for the Copa del Rey final for weeks to close this deal with Carlo Ancelotti. They got the agreement, they got the verbal agreement. After the deal was done 2 years ago, they returned, they reached the agreement with Carlo, they reached the agreement with the staff, and then deal off because of this Ancelotti Real Madrid exit process. So that's the feeling at the moment. The deal is really in danger and can really collapse. Again, let's wait for formal steps, but the Brazilian Federation is furious. So the situation looks really complicated now, and it's really crazy. It's part of the game sometimes, because you can have a verbal agreement, you can have a contract ready, you can have everything set to become the new coach of a club, of a national team, like in this case, but then you need to sign. And before signing, crazy things can happen. It happens like in 2, 3, 4, 5% of the cases, 95% of the cases. Time to sign the contract means something very formal, very normal, but in this case, the problem was not between Brazil and Carlo Ancelotti. The problem was between Carlo Ancelotti and Real Madrid for the exit. Then, there is still a couple of days before Carlo Ancelotti will appear in public and have the possibility to speak to the press to clarify the situation. Of course, the expectation is for the Brazilian Federation to take a position also on this, because they put the face again for weeks on this Carlo Ancelotti story. They were already preparing the list of the players for Carlo Ancelotti at the beginning of June, preparing the announcement in May for Carlo Ancelotti to be the new manager of Brazil. So everything was ready, even the official announcement, even the list of the players they wanted to discuss to be called at the beginning of June. But what happens in football is that you need to fix every single detail, especially at this level. Imagine Brazil, imagine Real Madrid, imagine Ancelotti, Florentino Perez. These are one of the biggest names in football, biggest sides in terms of club and national team in football. And so you can understand how the timing, how the agreements, how all these steps of the story are really crucial. So now the deal between Ancelotti and Brazil is more than in danger, a serious risk of collapsing, with a strong candidate that remains in the background, Jorge Jesus. He was out of the Champions League, Asiatic and Champions League, with Al Hilal in the recent hours. So for Jorge Jesus now is going to be time to clarify his future. Time to discuss also about this opportunity with the Brazilian Federation. Let's see what Brazil decide to do. Maybe wait a little longer, maybe call the negotiation off. At the moment, the feeling is that it's really collapsing. And then Jorge Jesus waiting, hoping for this opportunity, because since day one, since Brazil said goodbye to Dorival Jr. after the terrible international break in March, Jorge Jesus always told with the people close to him that he was prepared to go to Brazil as soon as possible. But now depends on Brazil, depends on Real Madrid, depends on Carlo Ancelotti. For sure, what happened between Carlo and Real Madrid had an impact on negotiation that is, at this time of the night, after a crazy couple of hours, on the verge of collapsing. And so guys, let me hear your thoughts on all these stories. What's your feeling on Carlo Ancelotti, on Florentino Perez, on Brazil, on Jorge Jesus? Who should be the coach? What should they do with Carlo Ancelotti? How crazy is this story? And also, what do you expect now for the future of Real Madrid? I wait for your comments here. As always, remember to like this video, turn on the notification bell, subscribe to the channel. See you soon. Ciao.